for joining us for our Creating a Whole Community Library training. This is provided typically for rural libraries, but anyone's welcome to join us. And this is from Plan. It's provided by Plan through a Texas State Library and Archives grant. So we're very grateful for that generous grant to help us do this. And Gretchen is actually on our Plan board of directors. So I think we're going to get some really, really great info here. And I'll turn it over to you, Gretchen.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. And it's I can't see everybody and still do the presentation, so I'm going to apologize in advance. But I'm delighted to be here and speak on a topic that is one that I'm pretty passionate about, and hopefully you all are as well, or you will be here today. So I think we're going to have a great discussion. So I subtitled this one, or How to Make Your Library the Heart of the Community. And it's really one and the same thing. If you're serving your entire community, your library will be the heart of the community, and vice versa. So let's see if I can, there. So I wanted to just start by giving some definitions of a whole community library. As we know, we've been reading a lot of research. Libraries are increasingly referred to as that third place, that third space. So it's not home and it's not work, but it's a place where people come and random and sometimes intentional in-person relationships develop. So that's kind of the definition of a third place. And what we're seeing in research like Palaces for the People and some of the other books that are out there is a third space is increasingly important in creating a vibrant and healthy community. One of the research pieces that I've just had the chance to see, and if you have access, I believe it's on Netflix. It's about blue zones and about communities that have an incredible number of centenarians and have amazing longevity rates. And a third place is an important component of those communities. If they don't have that, it's one of the 4 underpinnings of creating those extraordinarily long-lived communities. And so we are also a hub, and we become a hub, which is a little different than a third place, by our partnerships throughout the community. So partnerships with other institutions that connect people with services and help. So it's a little bit more than just the relationships. It's actually service to the people who are coming there. But in both third places and in hubs, the key components are going to be that you're physically in the place, location, which is why Amazon and some of the other Google and Apple are never going to replace the library, because they're not local. They're not in your town. So without that access, which is the other key component, and trust are not as possible because you're not in the community. And then the last piece, which makes it a whole community library, is that all members of the community have an equal opportunity to have access to programming and use the library as a hub or a third space. So what are the challenges? I don't think this list is any surprise. I have not ranked these in any order, because if I did, I would probably put the last one first. But obviously we have limited time, we have limited money, limited space, and limited staff. But probably the thing I want to talk about the most today is that it's not our job attitude, because if that's present, it doesn't matter what other resources you have. Your ability to create a whole community library is going to be stifled by just not thinking big enough. And that is something that I tell people all the time, especially in my role as TLA president this year. People a lot of times in the communities don't think big enough about their library and what it can do. They tend to put us in smaller boxes. And so our job as librarians is to help people understand all the possibilities that a modern library has available to the community. And if you're leading your small library, you're the biggest cheerleader, and you need to bring the vision that your library can do almost anything when it partners with the rest of the community to make something happen. So not our job is the number one challenge. And then what are the benefits of this? So why do you need to do this? Because I will tell you, I've seen it over and over again, and I know you all see this too. If you create the partnerships, you will get more money, more time, more space, more staff, and you'll be seen as an invaluable part of the community. I will tell a little story on my library team. We had an outside person come in to work on a strategic plan about 3 years ago. And as part of that project, he did a bunch of stakeholder interviews. So he interviewed Chamber of Commerce officials, city leaders, county leaders, nonprofit community leaders, and other people that we had identified as our stakeholder, our advisory board, and others. And I think probably the proudest moment of my life was when he came and said, "This is the first time I've ever done this process." And he said, "And I've done it many times across the country, where not one of your stakeholders mentioned books when they talked about the library. They talked about the partnerships, they talked about the staff and the resources. It was almost as though the books were an afterthought." So I think that is when you start to see that kind of a conversation about the library in your community, you will know that you're well on your way to being that whole community library and the heart of your community. So where to begin, right? Many of you may be familiar with the term asset mapping, and it's really just a survey of what are the assets that you and your organization bring to whatever process you're looking at. And it's catching a lot of, it's becoming very popular and accepted now to be talking about asset mapping. And many communities are starting to do asset mapping. But it's really, part of the same process would be maybe a strength, weakness, opportunity, threat analysis. So looking at what are your strengths and what are the opportunities. So start with your library team and your circle of stakeholders and supporters. I always like to look at the people first and remember that that's not just the staff, but that's the volunteers, that's the support groups, and then also your community structure. So your governing board or whoever it is that actually manages your library besides library teams. So for municipal libraries, that would be city leadership. County libraries, that would be your county commissioners court. Nonprofit libraries, that would be your board of directors, but include all of those. And when you're mapping out your assets, look at the person both as an individual with talents and gifts, but also as a community member, and look at what their involvement in the community is and try to track that. So if you have staff, volunteers, or other supporters that are members of other nonprofit organizations or are involved in other initiatives, try and capture that. So these can be your best first approach into looking at the community and working together. The other thing the next thing is your space, to map that out. So what possibilities do you have for space inside the library, outside the library, and then what other spaces are available to you? So for many of us, other city resources or county resources would be something I would put on the list. But we're in Texas, so if it's not summertime, think outside too. Another asset that we have is our collections. For many libraries in their community, they are not only a dispenser of books and a provider of programs, but they're also part of the history and the narrative of the community, capturing the narrative and making sure that that's preserved and accessible. So that is an invaluable role in your community, and somebody needs to do that. And if it's not being done, it's a perfect opportunity for your library to be doing that. But look at your different collections. So what is it that you have available to you, and what is it that you can provide to the community? And for many folks, just even access to the local newspaper archives is a big contribution, and there are grants and money available for that as well. And then look at the perceptions in the community of the library. Again, what a big challenge is for us to creating the whole community library is to get the rest of the community to see us as more than just books. And so try to find out who sees you in that role and who doesn't. And that's the first thing, just capturing that data so that you can make a plan to move forward. Then once you've looked at yourself, look at the community and apply the same asset mapping mentality to your community. It's possible that it's already been done. Many times the county government or the Chamber of Commerce has started this community map, but what you're looking at is what are the organizations within your town. Religious institutions are a big part of a community, medical facilities, the social services infrastructure, and others as applicable. And then look at your spaces too. So communal spaces, specialized spaces, schools. Try and capture just a picture of your community. And I put in here as a side note, one of the best places to start if you don't already have this product is a guide to the community resources. So if there isn't one already that you can start as your launch pad, you can create one. Because if it doesn't exist already, that is one more amazing opportunity you have to demonstrate your value to the rest of the community. So I'm going to pause for 1 second and just say, does anybody have any questions on any of this so far? If you do, if you can put them in the chat, and we'll, because I don't want to go too far and I don't want to get too far down the road without checking in with everybody. So any questions? Sarah, are you seeing anyone typing?
No, nothing at the moment.
Okay, well then I'm going to move on, but please feel free to ask questions in the chat if you have any as we're going through this. Okay, so under next steps then, one of the things that I like to stress as part of our re-education of what the library is capable of is that literacy is our mission, and it has multiple faces to the community. So partnering with a local bank to provide financial literacy courses, partnering with the community groups or even just volunteers to create physical literacy. We have many classes here at my library that are always free, because we are libraries. We have volunteers or now paid staff that teach Tai Chi and Zumba and Baile Latina and a bunch of other different physical fitness classes. And so teaching people how to stay physically fit. We have fall classes. And not classes in the fall, but classes on falling and hazards of falling that we partner with another group on. Nutritional literacy is really, really important. And that's a role that can also help you as you look at how your community is composed. We have a garden at one of our sites. And so we actually do a lot of work from the garden site. It's amazing how many kids don't know that vegetables come out of the dirt. That they think they just come from HEB. And so teaching about nutrition, cultural literacy as well. Many communities are finding there's an interest in genealogy, especially in the Hispanic community. The resources can be challenging to find, and they're not as available as some of the other cultural genealogy groups. So working with local groups to move forward on the cultural aspects. And of course, medical literacy and even regional literacy. And that's the role, again, of libraries in that local history component. capturing the community and the region. And so in each of these areas, one of the things that you need to do as a leader is think about how can you advance the dialogue in each of these literacy areas. I will say that when we first started doing a lot of non-traditional library programming, our friends group, which funds our programming, was giving a lot of pushback to the library. They were just not seeing that was funding programming that they were comfortable with, and so it took about a year, and it took some of them participating in some of the non-traditional programming for them to understand that the library again tackles literacy and lack of literacy and access to resources in all these areas. So this is the heart of the presentation, right? This slide right here. In order to be a successful whole community library and heart of your community, you're not providing programming. You are looking for problems in the community that need solutions and looking to see how you can use the assets that you have and the expertise that you bring to be a partner in the solution. It's just that simple. That framework of not can I do a program, but what's a problem in my community that needs a solution? And when you can identify a problem accurately and provide a solution that works, you will have a successful program. You will be doing the work you need to do to be the whole community library. And it can be simple. It can be something that doesn't require a lot of work. And ideally, that's the goal, is to leverage the resources that we have with the rest of the community to create a solution that is not adding an additional burden. It can be something as simple, and I know I've seen a program on it that Georgetown Public Library has partnered with their Humane Society, and we actually have two here. Ours is called Check Out a Cat for Life. And on Saturdays, a couple times a year, we have a story time that features kittens. And then the Humane Society comes in, sets up, and has an adoption event in the library after the story time. They tell us that we have the highest adoption rate of any adoption event they ever have. And that has been consistent. Twice now, they've run out of kittens before the event ended. So that was just one of those things. And it really is, no work on the staff. We picked some kitten books. That's not hard for my staff to do when they're putting on a story time, to find a couple of books about kittens. And then we just provided the space, and the Humane Society did all the work. And so there's at least 2 libraries that are doing that. But again, a problem in the community was, how do we reach out to different groups for adoption events? And the library was able to be a solution. So that's one thing that I have. And this is where I would love for you all to either put in the chat, or if you'd like to speak, raise your hand. And if you could talk about a problem in your community that you've worked to provide a solution to, hopefully with another agency, so not just you. So I'm going to give you all a moment to think. I'm going to put one more out there, and that is our local utility company was trying to get people to participate in rainwater capture and recycling. And so once again, we provided a captive audience, if you will. We have a communication path with our patrons. They came in, provided all the equipment, and taught people how to turn a trash can into a rain barrel. It's been very successful. We do that program twice a year. And really, again, all we do is send out a couple of emails to our library list and provide a meeting space. So the utility company has been very happy about that. So at this point, does anybody else have a solution that they've worked on that they'd like to share? No? Okay, well, we'll move on. But if you think of one, please raise your hand and let us know. Oh, Mary, yes, food insecurity in Del Valley. So Mary, do you want to talk about it, or are you more comfortable just putting it in the chat? Okay, not sure her mic works. So Mary, I will tell you, while you're typing, I'll just say we have, of course, okay, happy to answer questions. I will say we've had a problem with food insecurity, and the location I'm speaking from, the West Side Community Library, is on a campus, which is a community center and a library. It was originally run by a nonprofit and a church. And so they did a lot of outreach in the community, but more importantly, we're in the heart of our Hispanic part of town. They had a relationship with the community, which is really, really difficult to build when you're coming in from the outside. So we inherited that relationship, and they were a soup kitchen when we took over the community center. The city could not sustain that. It's just not a program a city could do. But we worked with the local food bank, and we then set up a mobile food pantry that the food bank provided basically the infrastructure. They brought a refrigerated truck, and people would drive through, and we had volunteers place foods in trunks. And so there was a form they picked up at the library where they just verified their eligibility for the distribution. And then they drove through with the form on their windshield. And then as they came through, they handed the form off to one volunteer, and we put food in their car. And it was great for the food pantry because they also had a difficult time getting refrigerated food out to people. And so for 2 hours, twice a month, we would hand out frozen meat and dairy products and produce that were all needing refrigeration. So now let's see, the chat on my computer comes and goes. Sarah, do you mind reading off the chat? Because I saw some things come through and I can't find them easily.
Yeah, Deborah says, I'm planning an event with a local rescue organization to have a cat and dog adoption event.
Great. Is this the first time, Deborah, that you're going to be doing this? Okay. I will tell you, Deborah, there's no downside to it. It is an amazing event. The staff love it too. Sometimes the adoptions are staff, I will just say, but bringing animals into the library is always a wonderful idea. And then Mary, did you have more that you were going to share about the food insecurity issue in Del Valley? Okay. Well, food insecurity is definitely a challenge for every community. Let's face it, every community has issues with food insecurity. So again, going through the asset mapping and find out who's doing what, or who are some of the players in addressing food insecurity, and then brainstorming ways that the library, through either people or space, or even just times, because one of the things that many times we do is we have expanded hours from the agencies that are trying to serve. And so being able to have people coming into the library after hours, if you will, and using resources can be a real asset to the community. We know that from workforce development. And of course, let's not forget the role that we play in workforce development. It is something that, because we've been doing it for so long, and because we've been doing it so well, we forget that there are groups that are getting a lot of money to help people through workforce development, and we're doing it for free. But because we have additional hours beyond, what the workforce development offices traditionally do, partnering with them for classes, and cross-promoting the resources is a big help. And also just even going over the workforce development office or making contact with them every now and then and asking about what are they doing, seeing what their facility looks like and what the equipment they have and what are they teaching. And then you can plan how to supplement that or work with that, because we don't want to duplicate services. And I saw Howard pop something up in chat.
Yes,
There.
he says we also work with food insecurity through the West Texas Food Bank. We wipe out library fines and have library fine-free months and days throughout the year. Partnerships do pay off. They recently randomly dropped off a few cases of water at our building.
And Howard, that's a great reminder. We actually have been able to do away with fines in our community. And I will tell you that was a process. And probably the biggest challenge, so this is an aside, but the biggest challenge in getting rid of the fines was reminding our governing board, which was the city council, what it's like to be poor in New Braunfels. Because none of the people on the dais understand that. And so we are a community with no mass transit and with very few sidewalks, and nobody can get to the library unless they drive. And so reminding people what it's like to not have reliable transportation and to incur $10 or $15 of fines accidentally, and what that does to a budget if you're economically insecure. That was a difficult conversation. It was one actually that had to be had in a budget workshop where it was an open meeting, but honestly, nobody was there. And so talking about what it's like to be poor in a city like New Braunfels, and how that keeps people from using the library. And with the background of understanding what it is that the library does and how vital we are in people's lives. So reminding your council or your governing board of that to deny people library services or to even put any kind of barrier to them coming into your library because of the wealth of resources they can access there. That's an important conversation. So, but until we were able to get rid of fines, food for fines, or programs where you do wipe away library resources or library debt in order to partner with the rest of the community, that's a really great gift to the community. And we had to learn to not be too picky, because even ramen noodles can be expensive. And so when we were doing that, we wanted to make sure we preserve the dignity of the person who's bringing whatever it is that they're bringing to get rid of their fine, and just kind of accept it all. Expired, whatever, no questions, no barriers to them reinstating their library membership. So I think that's just one of those things that we have to always think about, is that preserving people's dignity and partnering with them is really an important part of what we do. It's how we build that trust with our community. And thank you for reminding us of that, Howard. Anybody else think of something that they're doing right now, or an unusual agency that they're partnering with? Okay, well, I want to put in a plug for another program that libraries need to be aware of. And if you're not already doing it, look into it. And that's becoming a family place library. Texas, the state library, has been working very diligently with that national program to get as many Texas libraries as possible designated as family place libraries. And that is, by the definition, the implementation of the family place program ensures that you're creating community partnerships that benefit your young families. And For many of our communities, young families can be struggling sometimes to get to the library. Again, we have this conundrum where the people who need us the most are many times the most stressed and struggling. So just even getting them to be able to attend programming when many of them are working multiple jobs, reaching out to find out when is a good time for them to be able to come to programming. But components of the Family Place Libraries, which is funded by a very generous grant through IMLS and the Texas State Library, provides training for staff on parenting and early childhood issues. It provides equipment, so you get educational toys, which are toys, but they're really learning tools for the library. So the grant will fund that. It will fund training, sending your staff to training. So the expenses associated with that and in-person training. And then the components are that you have a parenting collection that's accessible near where the children's area is in your library. That you also have partnerships with local agencies. So agencies that serve families in our area, it's things like Any Baby Can and St. Jude's Children's Ranch and McKenna Children's Program. These are just some of the agencies that provide early childhood education or services. So you, as part of your asset mapping, you'll know who they are. And so you prepare structured programming throughout a specified period of time, usually around 6 weeks, structured programs that families come to, and they get a basis in parenting, but they also get an introduction into the resources in the community. So partnering with schools and Head Start and a lot of those other resources, whatever those are in your community, it's a way to solidify partnerships and make sure that parents are getting the best possible support structure in a community. And sometimes that's the difference between them making it in your community and not making it, because we know that building that community is really important. Anybody else have some ideas or some programs, or anybody have a problem that they're looking for a solution, or they've a problem in their community that they don't have a solution for yet? We can put the hive mind to work here and see if we can come up with that. Okay, well, I'm going to move on then, but if you do think of something that here we go, Deborah. Sarah, can you read that? I can't see it all.
My biggest problem has been in changing perception of our library. People involved have felt just books were okay.
Deborah, have you had any particular strategies that work or that you've had success with so far? Okay, plan, yes. Yes, and hopefully you're all getting to know Luann Noel. She is our new executive director at Plan. Eric came and presented, and it helped a lot. Yes, yes, and that is a resource. Luann is our new executive director, and so if you haven't met her yet, one of the strengths that Luann brings is she has been a small rural librarian, and so she knows firsthand a lot of the challenges in the community. But yes, especially those of us who are embedded in our community, it can be hard for people to see us in our full regalia with all of the skills and talents that we have. And that's part of, I think, a national conversation. Unfortunately, right now, many of us are getting a lot of attention, not for all the good work we're doing, but for having a few books that are maybe a little mature for some people. But we're right smack dab caught in the middle of the culture war that is currently happening in our country. And so we have to just stay the course and remember that we serve the whole community, and helping to define who that community is also part of our job. That there are pockets in our community that are hidden or that are not able to really come out and say who they are. And so being able to do the promotional work that we need to do is really important. I saw another comment pop through. Sarah, can you see that for us?
Yes, this is from Joanne. We tried to offer a board game after school program, but the city attorney insisted that parents also had to attend, which killed the program from the start. It was going to be intermediate and junior high kids. What do other libraries do about the liability issue? And liability in quotes.
That's not one I've ever had to deal with. I guess, first of all, what is your policy about unattended children? Because if your policy if you have an unattended children policy, then that should deal with the liability. We are not in loco parentis, and so we are not responsible for children any more than we are anyone else. But making sure you have a policy in place that addresses a lot of these things is really important. And so an unattended children policy, if you have an age limit, then they can be there unattended. And if the city attorney has a problem with that, I think maybe reaching out to some of the other, or reaching out through plan and seeing if we can get you some help there. Anybody else have that problem? Have you encountered that? Because I agree, having parents in the room when you're trying to do a teen program is no bueno, no bueno. Okay, well, I'm gonna go on and wrap up my slides. Yes, parents, exactly, Joanne, parents have to work. So where are those kids when parents aren't there? It sounds like, please reach out. Yeah, this is a new one that we're trying to see too. Now, Judy's mentioning they had a parent trying to join the teen book club. And we also have in our area, there's a parent who's suing another library because their teen is not being offered to go into they want to go to the adult book clubs. And one of them is at a local brewery here. So, things like that. So we're trying to discourage that. And I saw something else pop through, Sarah, as I was talking. So
we offered them the opportunity to join the general book club.
Yeah. Trying to have programming for, again, with a problem solution focus as opposed to just this is a program. So with the board games, the problem is we're trying to engage. We have kids that are after school that maybe don't have something to do. And so trying to engage them in a way that brings them into a safer space and gives them a constructive activity. And we know board games encourage skill building and teams building and, all those skills that teens need to be successful adults. So making sure that we frame the programs that we do in terms of the problems that we're solving with the program, because none of us have the luxury of doing a program just for the sake of doing it. We've got to solve problems. So any other comments? Okay, I'm going to advance the slide then. I'm going to tell you my story quickly. I don't want to monopolize, but I had the privilege of being forced to create a whole community library. Fortunately, it was not something that I was opposed to, but the Westside Community Center was, again, owned by a nonprofit, and my city bought up all the land around it, and they wanted to expand their site. They wanted to expand their facilities, and they were now landlocked by the city. So they had a community center and a church, and the city purchased it from the nonprofit and the church. And they were originally going to put the community center under Parks and Recreation because the community center building had a gymnasium. It had several classrooms. It had a commercial kitchen. It had locker rooms and restrooms and a stage. So it really was a multifunctional facility. So the original plan was that Parks and Rec would run the community center. But the city manager at the time was pretty visionary, and he said, I don't want this to be just another parks facility where they're charging for everything, because again, it's the heart of the Hispanic community, and the previous owner had provided lots of services for free to the community. And honestly, Parks didn't want it anyway, because they were in the process of trying to convince the city to build a new recreation center, which we did not have one. And they were very concerned, and probably rightly so, that if they took over the community center, they'd never get the rec center that they wanted. So the community center got placed under the library. And like I said, we had, they were running a soup kitchen out of it. They were running physical fitness classes. They were, they partnered with one of the local health organizations, and then with the county co-op, the AgriLife folks, and a lot of the Plant Society folks to provide classes on nutrition. They did health screenings. And so we continued most of that. We do health screenings, mammograms, and we teach classes on diabetes. The kitchen allows us, we put in a community garden, and the kitchen facility allowed us to grow food. And then we found that the head chef for the local school district has a passion for teaching kids. And so he partnered with us to have days where they harvest out of the garden, and then he takes the kids into the kitchen and they cook the stuff that they just pulled out of the ground, and then they eat together. So our friends group has wound up supplementing with some food costs, but we also now partner with HEB, and a lot of times they will donate some of the other food items that we need in order to create the meal. But it's a wonderful day when the families can come in, harvest, cook, and then share a meal together. That has really done a lot to create our community. We have another local artist who offers art classes. She works with a lot of troubled youth and does art therapy. And so she volunteered to start teaching art classes at our Westside Community Center. And under her direction, the kids, teens painted 2 different murals in our community center. The kids designed it, she honed it, put it up on the wall, and then they actually filled in the mural design. And so those were wonderful programs that we did there. We have just gotten very creative. But I will tell you, one of the things, my conference theme is stories inspire, opportunities await. And to me, this is the perfect synthesis of the story that I'm going to tell you. So by having the mobile food pantry, one of the people who came through and picked up food twice a month, while they were waiting in line, they got flyers telling about a lot of the classes that were happening at the West Side. And so she saw that there was a Zumba class. Now, this particular person was morbidly obese, over 300 pounds. Don't know just how much, but in poor health and in her 30s. But obviously her physical health was very challenging. And so she was struggling, honestly. And so she did one of the bravest things I think I've ever heard of. She showed up at a Zumba class, and she did that because it was free, and because she felt welcomed by the community center. So she showed up and attended a Zumba class, and it changed her life. changed her entire trajectory. She got hooked on Zumba, and before too long, she was coming to every Zumba class we could offer, and then started to come to some of the other fitness classes. And then she decided that she wanted to become a Zumba instructor. So she worked with the library staff and the community center staff to find out what it would take to become a Zumba instructor, took those classes, and then she became our Zumba instructor, one of our Zumba instructors. And she would not let us pay her, even though our friends make money so that we can reimburse our instructors. She would not let us pay her. She then eventually contracted with the YMCA to start teaching Zumba classes for them as well. And finally, we did convince her to let us pay her. But now she every year organizes a Zumba-thon to raise money for the food bank and for making sure that people can continue to attend Zumba classes. So just that one thing created a whole world, opened up the whole world to her. She's still a Zumba instructor. She's very popular. She's off most of her medication, has lost a lot of weight, and just has a whole new life. So that is one of the stories I tell about the power of the partnerships that we make. But had we not had that partnership with the food bank, had we not had the fitness classes, we wouldn't have been able to change her trajectory in the way that we did. So that's the why of why I do this. And I tell that story a lot because it shows how interconnected we all are. She also found a community in Zumba. She found her people, her tribe. And so she remains devoted to the Westside Community Center. And I will tell you that in 2019, the city was looking at bond projects, and the library was not high on the list of bond projects, but the council did a bus tour of the proposed projects. They came and saw the work that we were doing at the community center. And we had one room in the community center with 600 square feet that was our library, but we had computers and all the services. They saw the work we were doing at the community center, and very quickly the Westside Library became one of the top projects. And I'm happy to say that we opened it 4 weeks ago, September 16th, whatever that is. 4 weeks ago, and I'm broadcasting from the Westside Community Center today. And I wish I could take you on a tour, but it's an amazing facility, 8,800 square feet. And we now have a campus that does all kinds of amazing stuff. So it changed everything. So with that, I'm going to open it up to questions. And then I also wanted to just share with you, take a screenshot of this, if you will. These are some resources. It's not necessarily on how to kit exactly, especially because some of them are for bigger libraries, but it's some inspiration, and there's some really good narratives about how libraries are partnering with the community to move the narrative forward and to really, again, become the heart of their community. So with that, questions, comments, thoughts? Okay. Was this helpful? Or is there anything that you would like more information on? Or again, have you thought of a problem that you're looking for a solution?
I was thinking about the board game one a little bit because I'm in a board game class in college right now, but we were talking about like how just some problems that can come up, and like maybe a possible workaround is getting like a library Discord for teens set up, or and so they can play kind of games like Among Us or something together. Just as a thought, I don't know how viable that'd be, but that worked.
Yeah. Has anybody else had a a city official bring up the liability of having unattended children in the library, because let's face it, we all have them. And sometimes even when the parents are there, they're still unattended. Is that something anybody else has dealt with? Oh. Thank you, Deborah. I caught the first part of that. So. Okay. To appeal to kids who, Sarah, can you read off those chats? I
Okay,
can't.
Deborah says, this has been a perfect presentation, just what I need for my library. I will review this info and probably have a lot more questions on how to move my library forward. Thank you so much. And Joanne says the board game idea was to appeal to kids who weren't necessarily involved in other activities.
Exactly. Yeah. Joanne, you've got to keep after that. You're on the right track. And if anybody has any thoughts for Joanne, if you can relay them to Sarah at Plan, and she will make sure Joanne gets them. And Joanne, I will look into that too, because I know that we have kids in the library without parents all the time, and the city's covered for that. I mean, goodness, we have liability insurance out the wazoo most of the time. So I'm just wondering if there's something in particular about this program that was bothersome to them. But also do look at your unattended children policy. So yes, do look at that and get your city attorney to review it. So okay.
Howard says this has been very helpful. I got a lot of key takeaways. Thanks, Gretchen. Spot on. And Joanne said that we'll check our unattended children's policy. We have a lot who come in alone.
We do. And you know, one of the things that I hear all the time, and I know you all do too, is we're a lifeline for so many people. I can't tell you how many adults have come up to me and said, the library saved my life. I had working parents, or bullied, or, you know, a whole litany of things. And if I had not found a safe space in the library, and then the corollary of found myself in books, I would not be here. We hear that over and over again, especially from authors, right? So many of them spent a lot of time in the library when they were children, and that it was their safe space. So it's not the sports field, it's not dance classes or some of those other things, but for many kids, this is the place where they can be safe and find themselves either in other people or in books. And we know how important that is. And that's, again, if you don't have your collection development policy wrapped up in a bow, please do that soon, because we need to make sure that we have diverse books. And since it's not just books on LGBTQ issues anymore, but it's racial equity issues, it's you know, all kinds of books are under attack right now, and I'm facing it right now. Moms for Liberty is the playbook is being used at my library right as we speak. We had a prayer event on Saturday where the Moms for Liberty group showed up to pray for my library and pray away the bad books, apparently. So it was underwhelming, thank goodness.
Okay.
Not what they expect. We expected 300 and we got about 50. So, but we're under attack, and we just have to remember the work we do is important, and collect your stories. If I have one final word, is gather your stories, put them in your toolkit of individual lives you've changed, like me and my Zumba person. Because we know that these changes are things that we see every day, and so capturing those stories is important. So 2 takeaways: capture your stories, solve problems, and
fill out my post survey. I need information on how it went, and what other ideas y'all have for us to do for trainings.
yes.
I sent it in the chat. And it'll also come out. There'll be a link to this recording, by the way, tomorrow, probably around this time or so is when it's gonna come and then it'll also have the post survey, and you'll get like a CE credit for being here.
And please reach out to me if I can be of help in any way. So.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you so much, Gretchen. We really appreciate it. That was very insightful.
Well, thank you all for being here, and share your stories. That's we know words have power, and if they didn't, they wouldn't be attacking us. So, okay.
Okay, guys. Thank you. Sign up for other plan trainings. You got another one this Thursday. There's Dragon in your library, so it's D&D programming. I'm excited for that. Love D&D.
Yes, we have a D&D group on Saturday afternoons in our library. It's
Oh, how fun!
very popular, yeah. So, and we just put the table and chairs out.
I used the 3D printer at our school library to to make my little D&D character. And the head came out a bit weird, so I had to reprint it and like cut off the bad one and stick the new one on.
I love it. All right.
I think I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting. Again, if you guys have any questions, just send them to either me or Gretchen's emails right there on the screen. Okay.
Have a great
Bye,
day, everybody.
everyone. Thank you, Gretchen.
Thank you. Bye-bye.